This is One Black British Woman's Voice, and today I want to touch on the subject as to why the one drop rule baffles and perplexes white people. Now, for those of you that don't know what the one drop rule is, the one drop rule basically is if you have one drop of black blood in you, that means that you're black. It was a spurious legislation imposed by an American government in particular to enable or to ensure that anyone, even if they had just one black grandparent 4 generations ago, would be classed as black. It's interesting because I think the diarist Samuel Pepys actually says when he visited America during its era of slavery, or its era of slavery, he said it ripped his heart out to see white women on the selling block, on the auction block, because these women, to all intents and purposes, looked white. However, because they had a grandfather or a grandmother, oh sorry, not even a grandmother, a great-grandmother or great-grandfather who was black, they were classed as black, therefore redefining them and keeping them within the sphere of chatteldom, which is what black slavery was, chatteldom, an owning of animals, a property, making them property, etc. So this is my point. I'm looking at this one drop rule and why it baffles black people because I was watching a radio interview with a white guy that was in an Australian soap called Home and Away. I think he played Brax. And he's now left Home and Away. He left the longest time ago in order so he could go and give himself a stunning career in Hollywood, even though if his conversation on a radio station is any indication to go by, good luck with that. And he talked about him being potentially offered a role in a film with Dwayne The Rock. Dwayne The Rock is a past wrestler. He stars in all the Fast and Furious, or most of the Fast and Furious franchises, is extremely hot with or without hair, but I digress. Dwayne The Rock is, from what I know, multiple ethnicities. To appearances, though, clearly he's not Nordic, well, he's not white to look at, but he is a mixture of ethnicity, so he's not 100% black. I think there might be Samoan in him and some other racial ethnic traits. And this guy who used to play Brax on Home and Away, this white guy with blonde hair and blue eyes, or rustic blonde hair and blue eyes, talks about the funniest time where he was given a job offer within Hollywood, or he had to read for a part in the film with Dwayne The Rock. And what he found funny about it wasn't the fact that he'd been offered a role. I mean, he'd be lucky that he was offered a reading for a role. He was lucky that he even got that. What he found funny was that the role that he had been called in to read for was as nephew to Dwayne The Rock. And this ensued a bout of ho-hum hilarity, because how could this little rustic blonde man with his blue eyes, or semi-blue eyes, possibly play the nephew of Dwayne The Rock? That's impossible, isn't it, according to this white guy? And that's my point. The one drop rule baffles black people. On one account, they've created a rule which says that if you are in any way, shape or form, have even a remote drop of black in you, you're black. And yet someone of multiple ethnicities, he could not conceive that Dwayne The Rock would be his nephew. I find it so extraordinary, the lack of scientific or biological understanding that white people have about race and the gene pool, or actually rather that they're so mired in their own superiority complex that they can't possibly comprehend that someone with blonde hair and blue eyes could have a black grandfather or a multiple ethnicity uncle. Logic tells you that it's perfectly feasible. Dwayne Rock himself, being of multiple ethnicities, could have had a brother or sister of multiple ethnicities, and that brother and sister could have had a white partner, and it was easily aspirational for this child to come out with blonde hair and blue eyes. That's just what happens. Of course it could happen. If Dwayne The Rock was as black as myself, then yeah, you probably would see a little bit of black within this white actor. I mean, I've got good black dar. I'm pretty good at being able to spot one drop in any white person. Except for one, but that's another story I'm going to go into another time. But it was inconceivable to this white actor that he would have a multiple ethnicity uncle. And if you look at Dwayne The Rock when he had hair, his hair was silky, it was Caucasian hair. But to this white person, this muddled white person, he's thinking to himself, well, it's just as well I didn't get this role because the family unit would look improbable. It would look very improbable. Where do they amass this delusion from? I'm just bizarre. A simple basic understanding of the gene pool, of how ancestry works, could tell you that that was highly probable. But to him, he didn't. And it's just, it made me laugh. It was hilarious watching him. And they laughed about it. Him and his white studio presenters, or radio interviewers, laughed about it for, it must have been a good 5 minutes. Anyway, I'm One Black British Woman's Voice, and I'm out.